You already know the truth, correct? You were never expected to try to shrink, to blend into the background. The signs were always there, whispering in moments of doubt and leading you to something larger. And now you're on the edge of achieving all you've always desired. Remember those nights? Have you ever wondered whether things will ever get better? If the effort ever pays off? Look at you now. The tables have turned. The script has flipped. And those who formerly ignored you are now watching in silence. They realize they'd underestimated the wrong one. But you're not looking back for validation. You're looking forward because the past has nothing else to offer you. This is your awakening. Not restricted to money, not only strength, but absolute truth. You were never ordinary. Every obstacle, every closed door, every instant made you feel overlooked. Everything was building up to this moment since you weren't simply another player in the game. You were chosen and destined. And now the proof is undeniable. The epiphany emerges not as a soft whisper, but as a profound shift in perception. You are no longer reluctant to compare each request to a diminishing resource. Nowadays, decisions are decided based on merit rather than need. The statistics on screen no longer represent mere survival. They indicate expansion, a force that goes forward rather than just maintaining the line. The practice of depleting all available resources for rationing has evaporated, leaving little identifiable. The first significant alteration happens, and it does more than just bring comfort. It rewires how reality is seen. Years of cautious restraint fall under the weight of newfound confidence. Scarcity is no longer the default setting. The echoes of previous restraints fade, each one dispersing like shadows chased away by morning light. The moment is tangible, full with energy that seems to be the breaking of an unspoken curse. This was once an unachievable dream, a distant phantasm. Now it is within reach, undeniable. In its presence, what seemed to be an unbreakable cycle was broken. The former horizon was replaced with an open one. The weight was driven down. Tightening every choice and grabbing every breath has led to understanding. A startling realization that this was never about numbers, but about the capacity to go beyond established boundaries. A door has been flung open, revealing a universe that was always ready to be grasped. The absence of constant tension alters everything. Without the weight of imminent responsibilities, the options unfold like an unexplored terrain begging to be explored. The alternatives are no longer constrained by forced compromises, and they are driven by vision rather than poverty. The long-running fight between ambition and restraint has been resolved, ushering in a new era in which taking a step forward is no longer a danger, but rather an affirmation. Previous constraints were never sustainable. They were just delusions that no longer had any power. Now the stage is set not just for stability, but also for progress, seizing every opportunity that previously seemed out of reach. The polarity gets sharper. The road was not destroyed, but rather hindered. What seemed like punishment was really preparation. Every conflict was like a sculptor's chisel, shaping resilience and determination. Unresolved questions, shut doors, and moments of uncertainty. They were never rejections, but rather lessons disguised. The truth was never absence, but rather alignment, a process that played out just as it should. What happens today is not a surprising windfall, but rather the merited result of every action made. Every suffering was endured. There was never a lost cause. Only a trip of patience will reveal its significance. This moment changes more than just personal problems. It extends beyond rebounding into the future. The circle of constraint has been shattered, will never be rebuilt, and is no longer entangled in unseen promises. I no longer carry the burden of inherited hardship. The previous duties do not dictate the future shape. Instead, a new legacy is being created. One in which depletion has been replaced by plenty and depletion is no longer anticipated. This is not a temporary affluence. This is fundamentally changing what was previously assumed to be inescapable. There has been a revolution, not only in money, but in life itself. The period of reactive survival is over. This is the time of intentional design. The effect reaches well beyond the present. It extends to future generations. What was previously an endless cycle of scraping by has evolved into the purposeful creation of a long-term structure. It's not only about collecting. It's also about ensuring that future generations never have to worry about their safety. What was once obscure is now unassailable. Everything, including the storyline, has been irrevocably changed. The restlessness that formerly pervaded every thought, the never-ending calculation of resources, and the unchanging dread of the unknown. It's all dissolved. What once looked like an eternal balancing act has become normal, natural. No longer does each day start with worry. Instead, it begins with the peaceful conviction that everything is as it should be. Money no longer controls emotions or determines the rhythm of life. It has grown into an instrument that allows you to build your own reality. The urgency of just getting by has subsided, replaced with the clarity to pursue what really requires devoting energy where it is most required. The weight of shortage is removed, revealing a new way of being. A deeper comprehension of the ocean emerges. Not everyone grasps the notion of riches. Some pursue it indefinitely. Others are terrified of it because they do not comprehend what it means. However, this is unlike the others. This isn't about accumulation or luck. It was always intended to be. The creation of riches is not arbitrary nor fleeting. It validates and verifies alignment. Each wave of fate is a tiny echo of something already written, a reminder that this path was predetermined long before it was taken. This isn't about gaining wealth. It is about really inhabiting the space. It was always meant to fill. Wealth is not something to pursue. It is something to master. It has no control. It does not demand. It does not define. It moves. It expands. It goes through the hands of those who understand its true meaning. Instead of clinging to money, commanding it means guiding and molding it into something bigger than oneself. It is neither a reward or a privilege. It is a tool, a force as variable as time itself. Those who misread it will try to reduce it to statistics and a system of constraints, convincing the public that it belongs only to those who understand how to manage its rules. However, the truth is far greater. You will realize the truth, which will set you free. John 832. The veil is lifted, the fog clears, and everything makes sense. The barriers that previously surrounded you and the chains that seemed unbreakable, they were never real. They were shadows, distractions, illusions, intended to keep you little. But now you see. And once you see, you can never go back to pretending. It's like stepping into the sunlight after many years of living in darkness. At first, it's overwhelming, blinding, even, but your eyes will ultimately adjust. And for the first time, you realize you were not meant to struggle in the shadows. You were meant to reign in the light. The system was never intended for you to win. The rules were never intended to help you succeed. They wanted you to remain quiet. They asked you to wait. They wanted you to feel that you had to earn your place. At the moment, you grasp the truth. The moment you reclaim what was always yours, everything shifts. Because, listen to me, freedom was never anything you earned. It was something worth remembering. The power was always inside you. The key was always in your possession. They just convinced you it wasn't. They taught you to distrust yourself, be wary, and seek approval from others. But let me tell you something. The only permission needed is the one you provide yourself. Traditional approaches are no longer effective. The hidden ceilings have crumbled. The artificial limits have shattered. You do not live in a world of scarcity anymore. You do not react to fear. You will not surrender to systems that are meant to keep you bound. The contract has been voided. The cycle is broken. You are not just surviving. You are taking authority. And this is why they are afraid. Because when you accept your inheritance and behave as if you have already received the promise, everything changes. The moment you stop asking, stop waiting, stop seeking approval, you become untouchable. This is not an escape. This is a release. You are not escaping from anything. You're walking into everything. You were always meant for this. The weight is gone. The guilt had been erased. The fear, irrelevant. You do not owe them an explanation. You don't owe them a reason. You owe them no hesitancy. If your heart overflows with God's blessings, let that love shine. Click the super thank you button and contribute $20 or more to plant seeds of faith that will transform countless lives. Your generosity symbolizes His riches. Be a conduit for His grace and see His kingdom expand through you. Because what was written cannot be erased. What has been predestined cannot be stolen. What is aligned cannot be taken away. Now it's up to you to make the choice. Will you claim it? The restrictions have changed, as has everything else. Giving is no longer an informal arrangement. Kindness is no longer a currency. Every action is now a choice, not an obligation. Energy, time, and resources are no longer accessible to people who do not value them. Those who have previously relied on taking will notice the change. They will resist. They'll question. They will blame because they don't understand what happened. But none of it matters. What matters is clarity, conviction, and unequivocal knowing. This is how things were always intended to be. The alteration is irreversible. The connections that used to guide choices, the expectations that seemed inexorable, are no longer existent. A new frequency has emerged, in which compromise is no longer the price of membership. The weight of justification has been lifted, replaced with unshakable assurance. No explanation is necessary. No validation is required. The days of compromising, accommodating, and making place for others at the expense of one's own self-esteem are over. A new identity has developed, one that does not seek permission to exist. The days of justifying accomplishment are done. Those who were gone throughout the challenges do not suddenly deserve intimacy. The tide has turned. Access is no longer granted freely, and simple presence does not constitute entitlement. Those that come while the skies are clear will be without shelter until the storm is gone. No more overextension. No more enduring the load of convenience-based relationships. The standard has changed. Only those who reciprocate and recognize the balance remain. There's no shame in closing doors that were never really open. Authenticity has become the only measure that matters. Connections requiring depletion are no longer considered connections. These are transactions, and the debt has been satisfied. Genuine support exists on its own, without obligation or expectation of return. Those who cannot give what they take and instead come up to receive will fade into the background, where they were always meant to be. Stability is no longer negotiable. Years of accepting suffering for the sake of tranquility have ended. The foundation has been reset. The prior mode of life, which tolerated imbalance, no longer exists. This is the moment at when unwavering confidence takes control and energy is no longer a commodity to be traded. Those who cannot meet the standard will question, distort, and even despise it. However, it is no longer an issue. Quiet observers, those who have always observed from the edges and seen beyond the surface, understand individuals who move differently and possess incomprehensible information. Do not seek permission for the direction they have chosen. The time for hesitation is past. Boundaries no longer need permission. The answer is final, without hesitation, reason, or explanation. Once the word had circulated, reluctance gave way to concern over how it would be received. It now stands alone, unshakable and obvious. Every sacrifice made at the expense of oneself has been reversed. The era of accountability has ended. Each rejection of an imposed expectation is an act of reclamation. What was formerly seen as selfishness is now accepted as self-respect. The clarity is clear. Those who resist, push back, or try to convince via guilt were never meant to remain. They grew only in situations with no limitations. The remodeling is complete. The once wide-open gates are suddenly closed, and only those who understand their importance will find the key. Do not be tricked. God will not be mocked. Whatever one sows, he will reap. Galatians 6-7. The generosity must come to a stop at some time. When the cycle of overextending, explaining, and compensating is completely completed. When you look around, you see that not everyone was rooting for you. Others were just waiting to see what they could grab. And then the goodies stop. When access is denied, this is when you understand who people really are. See, they weren't prepared for this version of you. They had never prepared for the day you'd stop knocking on doors that should never have been exposed all day. You'd stop encouraging people to appreciate something that was always valuable. They saw your kindness as weakness. They incorrectly presumed your patience permission. However, they forgot that every crop has a season, and your season of bountiful giving is gone. Certain doors are meant to stay locked. Some tables were not intended to be shared over a long length of time. You exposed yourself up to those who just knew how to take. You poured into empty containers without stopping. You received calls from people who would never check on you if you were silent. They still called it love. They called it friendship. They called it loyalty. The truth is, they had no intention of paying for the deal. And now you have changed. They don't know what to do now that you've embraced your riches. They will say you have changed things up. They will assume you have forgotten where you came from. They will say, you are selfish. Now, but please, stop giving to those who only know how to take. They call it arrogance. When you stop excluding the wrong individuals, they term it treason. But this is their problem, not yours. Because they don't understand that you didn't just change. You evolved. You grew beyond them. You grew above your smallness. They sought to keep you inside. You stopped making excuses for those who didn't deserve to be at your table in the first place. You realized that you couldn't buy calm with exhaustion, and you can't demonstrate love via pain. Allow me to tell you something. The folks who loved and cared for you are still alive. Those who have never needed a part of you to feel whole. They still applaud you. Those who respected you even when you didn't have anything. They celebrate you. Now you have something. The others, let them be uncomfortable. Allow them to dispute it. Allow them to talk. You owe them nothing. Not an explanation. This isn't an apology. Not a second thought. Because what was written cannot be erased. What was meant for you cannot be taken away. The door is closed. The chapter is completed. And the only characters who remain in the story are those who were meant to be there all along. Not every route is intended to be taken in tandem. Growth involves distance, and not all bonds are built to sustain change. Some thrived in an environment where work was the universal language and constraints drew people together. However, when that language is no longer used and survival is replaced by certainty, separation becomes necessary. Those who supported the version that questioned the version that second-guessed will be the most adamant. They were at ease in the middle of fighting, but the presence of authority makes them uncomfortable. What was previously hidden is now in the open. The shifting tides have shown who remained out of genuine concern and who stayed for personal gain. Success did not change anything. It just stripped away the delusions. Some were only happy when the ascent did not surpass their own. Some remained in assistance until the distance was too much for them to traverse. Clarity replaces the energy used in justifying and explaining. Accommodating is recovering the desire to shrink, soften, and put others at ease. It no longer exists. Scarcity is no longer a framework. The past, with its rigorous calculations, prudent precautions, and concern disguised as practicality, is no longer relevant. No more questions. If there is enough. No more pausing before pushing forward. The belief that a conflict was required has been destroyed. There is no way to return to that location. There will be no more restricting chances out of fear of running out. The narrative has been adjusted. The old cycle has broken. The only alternative left is to go forward. Wealth is no longer a feared power, nor is it a fragile treasure that must be desperately guarded against loss, depletion, or disappearance. That fear no longer motivates action. Understanding, not control, is what creates plenty. It is not something to seek, request, or beg for. It responds to certainty. It is no longer an elusive concept or an external metric. It is turned into an extension of power, a mirror of interior alignment. What was formerly thought fleeting is now seen as unavoidable. The divide between history and present is absolute. Old tales no longer influence reality. The habits, inherited attitudes, and deeply ingrained cycle of limitation, they are irrelevant in this situation. What was once a life of endurance has been changed into one of purpose, no longer bound by limitations. No longer see impediments where none exist. Everything that was previously believed unreachable is now within reach. And this is only the beginning. The first step toward a limitless existence has been completed. And there is no retreat, just progress. Momentum is unstoppable. The once futuristic idea is now becoming a reality. The world is no longer an abstract term, nor is it just a collection of places seen through the eyes of others. It's a personal landscape that is both accessible and available, no longer constrained by hesitation, no longer looking for permission to appreciate everything that life has to offer. Movement is simple. What was formerly seen as a luxury is now considered standard. The boundaries and restrictions, the constraints that seemed to be absolute, have relaxed. There is no disagreement or inquiry. There is just forward movement with no hesitation. Abundance is not a reward. It's right. There is no longer an internal debate about whether pleasure must be justified or relaxation must be earned. The struggle tale is outdated. The mind no longer equates success with guilt, no longer hesitates to invest in peace, well-being, and activities that help both mind and body. A life lived freely, with no apologies or second thoughts, isn't an indulgence. It's all about achieving homeostasis. Every choice is consistent, and every moment is fully appreciated without the burden of unspoken doubt. A major shift has occurred that cannot be reversed. Scarcity is no longer the limiting barrier to life. Because of the propensity to settle for the minimum, the propensity of shrinking, the option of preferring lack over familiarity is no longer accessible. Every interaction, every investment in comfort and progress makes a message. Survival is no longer the goal. The former version of thriving, which accepted less while believing there was value in trying, no longer exists. The new world is predicated on plenty, and there is no compromise in picking the best. Wealth is more than simply numbers. Everything boils down to influence. It's a construction. It's a command. Mastery does not end with accumulation. It includes protection and discernment. The idea is straightforward. Resources, whether financial or energetic, are not simply available to be drained by those who provide nothing in return. The doors that formerly stood open without limitation have been tightened. Access is no longer granted to individuals who act without thinking and see presence as a chance to abuse. Every move is purposeful. Every choice reflects knowledge. What has been generated is not only temporary prosperity, it is an unquestionable foundation on which long-term success is built rather than assumed. Those who previously received without giving, drained without replenishing, and watched but never lifted, they are no longer within grasp. The broad doors that formerly welcomed everyone are now closed, allowing only those who provide value, respect the balance, and give as much as they get, no longer imprisoned in cycles of duty or burdened by mistaken devotion. The selection was intentional. The circle is now smaller yet stronger. What remains is robust, unshaken, undeniable. True power does not seek validation. Wealth is not for show, not meant for shallow displays. It is a foundation, a fortification, a tool for attaining longevity. Every movement is perfect. Every decision is taken with purpose. There is no waste or hasty pursuit of status, only the deliberate creation of anything destined to last throughout time. The past, challenges, and sacrifices were never forgotten. They were investments. Every challenge was an opportunity to devise a strategy for stability. What is being produced now will have a purpose beyond today. It is built to endure for generations. Pain has never been a dead end. It has always been raw material for transformation. What seemed to be obstacles turned out to be stepping stones. The problems were not distractions, but rather opportunities to train, gain resilience, and improve attention. There was never a moment of surrender, simply recalibration, and now I'm standing in a reality that I had previously only glimpsed. There's no dispute about how it happened. This wasn't a gift, chance, or coincidence. It was the product of unwavering determination, unwavering discipline, and a willingness to see beyond temporary setbacks to long-term success. Not everyone will understand. Some will wonder. Some will whisper. Some people will not believe. However, they were never meant to glimpse the whole picture. Others waited, hesitated, and searched for confirmation. The steps were taken. The dangers are acknowledged. The foundation has been laid. It was never about luck. It was about movement. When others remained unmoving, the difference was clear. Waiting for permission wasn't an option. Patience, preparation, and an unrelenting belief in the potential helped create the idea. Small thinking is not an option. The rules that individuals previously followed no longer apply. There is no place for restricting or contracting to fulfill expectations. Standing in full power requires breaking free from imposed constraints and going beyond the ordinary. This is leadership in the sense of demonstrating what is possible rather than dictating it. This is not the end of the journey, but rather the beginning of something far larger. There is no settlement. There is no slowdown. There is no escape. Only elevation. This isn't the final destination. It serves as a beginning point. Every choice made from here has an influence on something larger than personal success. It establishes a legacy, a force that will last well beyond the present time. Wealth is not something you can just possess. It is something to be guided, expanded, and used with purpose. The path ahead does not include accumulation. It is about mastery. The ramifications of these activities will extend beyond the present moment and the ego. This isn't about what we've achieved. It's about what is being built. Previous cycles no longer exist. There is no more work, shortage, or waiting for things to change. The transformation has already happened. Flow has replaced force. Uncertainty has made way for confidence. Power has replaced ambiguity. The kind of life that was first distinguished by reluctance, fear, and smallness. It is no longer of any use. Every action is being carried out with accuracy, confidence, and the absolute knowledge that what has been built cannot be undone. This is not the conclusion. It is the beginning. Allow the world to witness what real transformation looks like.